Right, next, if you join us, Nick, an entirely different take on this with some of the same parameters, but a different take on how to make big data measurable, meaningful, and so on for all your brands. And it comes from Nick Terlizzi, Media and Entertainment Advisory Partner at E&Y. Welcome, Nick.
Hi. Good morning, everyone. My name is Nick Terlizzi. I'm a partner with EY, part of our Media and Entertainment Advisory practice. I lead up a pretty large group that specializes in auditing media measurement, so television ratings, radio ratings, print estimates, and also digital metrics. So the purpose of my presentation today is how can media buyers and sellers trust digital measurement? Just by way of hands, I want to kind of get a sense of the audience. How many people use digital measurement? And that would include video and display impressions, metrics, third-party data. How many people in the room use this in their daily lives here? Okay, so good. We have a couple of people that are going to be interested here. Anyway, today's conference, the last 2 days, it's about LATAM. So we do our audits a lot in the US, but also a lot in Latin America. So just to kind of give you guys a perspective on the auditing that's been done in Latin America over the last 20 years, a lot of it has focused on where the money has been. So a lot of work in television, primarily in the big two markets, Mexico and Brazil. We've been auditing there close to 20 years. Both those markets now are on an annual basis where Ernst & Young performs audits. With some participation from the organization in the US I'll talk about today, the Media Rating Council. They're a standard-setting accreditation body, so they work with both the Brazilian and Mexico industry to assess the quality and performance of the television measurement. A lot of the other markets that we've worked with, Panama, Costa Rica, Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, Paraguay, those audits have been less frequent, but still the buyers and sellers of data there were interested in the quality, so they called in us to work with the MRC to assess the performance. We've also done some work, but not as much in radio and print with the Peruvian, Chilean, and Brazilian market. So I've talked about all the other media, and now about digital. So where are we at in LATAM as it relates to digital measurement and auditing? We're in the beginning phases. Just this summer, we did our first audit of Comscore's VCE validation tool in Mexico and presented to the local industry there. We're also participating with others around education in terms of internet standards and internet auditing in that market. So there's still a lot of other metrics that are out there that are being used, but they're not being audited. So what's my perspective? Is it buyer beware? I would say in the short term, yes. But in the long term, there's hope, and the rest of my presentation is going to talk about an approach. A little bit about how we do in the US. The Media Rating Council is a membership organization. They set standards for all types of media. They've done a lot in the internet area. They have an accreditation process that requires an annual audit. But one of the key things on the slide here, and for those users of data, what their objective is to make sure that media measurement is valid, reliable, and effective. Think about how important that is. If you're presenting to a client, if you're presenting to your supervisor, the data that you're currently using, you should ask yourself, in LATAM, how do I know if it's valid, reliable, and effective? In the US, this is how we do it. We have standards, we have an oversight process, and we have a third-party audit. Another important initiative I want to talk about, because I think it's very relevant to Latin America, is Making Measurement Make Sense, 3MS. It was started in 2010 between the IAB, the Interactive Advertising Bureau, the 4As, the Agency Association in the US, and the ANA, the advertisers. At that time, they weren't satisfied where measurement was for digital, so they did a consulting project and tried to determine if there was any recommendations. And what came out was basically the Media Rating Council was empowered even more in terms of setting standards. And what has come out of that? the MRC has set standards around what we call viewability. So back 3 or 4 years ago, you had your impressions based on impressions served. Now there's at least 15 companies in the US that produces viewable impressions. So for display, for at least 1 second, 50% of the pixels were in view. For video, at least 2 seconds, at least 50% of the pixels were in view. And there's third-party audits to verify that. And also now the MRC is working on developing digital GRPs to be able to be comparable with television. So the 3MS was a very, very important initiative. In purpose of time, I'm not going to go through all of these, but just to kind of give you guys a sense, these are some of the major digital measurement challenges. It's interesting this week, the last 2 days, hearing a lot about programmatic, hearing a lot about big data. I have not heard one thing about non-human traffic, about fraudulent traffic. A lot of the people in the industry up in the US, or here in the US, are saying this upcoming year is going to be the year of non-human traffic. The standards that are currently out there require you to remove non-human traffic that's being driven by these little robots and spiders that are out there on the internet. Well, it's not sufficient. And right now, the Media Rating Council, working with the Interactive Advertising Bureau, is looking to up the game and have enhanced NHT guidelines. So hopefully we'll have them soon. The rest of these challenges I'm not going to go over, but if you're interested, at a break, I'd love to talk to you about any of these. But just to kind of give you the sense of some of the things that we're dealing with on digital measurement. This is probably the most important slide that I have. And it's a pretty simple one. If you guys care about trusting the data, about trusting digital measurement, your impressions, your clicks, third-party measurement from companies, and you want to trust it, this is your slide. My first message is, don't do it alone. If you try to do it alone, it's not going to happen. What I would recommend is that you work through industry associations, the Interactive Advertising Bureaus in your respective countries, your agency associations, work through them on your concerns, and come together as a group. Both buyers and sellers need to work together to improve the measurement. Second piece, piggyback off the great work that's been done by the Interactive Advertising Bureau and the Media Rating Council. There are guidelines and standards that exist that you can use. Use them. Just because a product has been audited in the US does not mean it's the same process or the same quality in your country. So it's important to be able to check that. You need to have a third-party audit. It's important to verify that the companies are following their standards, their guidelines. Having said that, and with audits, with good oversight, no service is perfect, not in television, not in digital. There are always improvements to be made, so it's important that an industry works together to make sure that the data is reliable, valid, and effective. Here's a real quick slide on don't ignore the fundamentals. Doesn't matter if we're auditing people meter services, face-to-face interviews, diaries, whatever. We check on things like IT controls, documentation, disclosure of KPIs. Those things are also important in digital. So if you do undertake an audit, an assessment of media measurement, it's important to consider them too. Here's my conclusion slide, my point of view. I'm using a couple of quotes. The first is a quote, not necessarily about media measurement, although I kind of get the feeling a lot of times it applies. When there's a choice between convenience and quality, convenience beats quality every time. So if you think about it, just because a metric is there, a measurement's there, we like to use it, okay? But it's only good to use if it's a quality metric. So here's my call to action to the LATAM industry, to the buyers and sellers out there. Work together to make sure that quality wins out over convenience with your media measurement. And to use the two quotes of my clients basically at the IAB and the MRC, the IAB quote here had to do with the transition to viewability. You can't fix the engine, that's the measurement engine, without getting under the hood. And the MRC, through their auditing and supervision, has done that and then some. And then from the quote of the CEO of the Media Rating Council, George Ivey, trust the measurement, use it, but you got to verify it.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Nick.